KBTC, a viewer-supported community service of Bates Technical College.
Northwest Now is supported, in part, by viewers like you. Thank you.
The signs of climate change are all around us here in Western Washington. Washout winter rainstorms, rapid snowpack melt-offs, receding glaciers, warmer water temperatures, and an increased risk of wildfire. Tonight, our discussion with a group of climate experts who will give us a feel for what we're facing here in Western Washington. And Northwest Now reporter Steve Kiggins brings us the story of endless fire seasons and the impact they have on the people and infrastructure doing battle with the heat. The changing climate in Western Washington is next on Northwest Now. Water restrictions, worries about fire danger, a die-off of native trees, shrinking glaciers, and stressed-out cold water crustacean and fish species in both the freshwater and the sound are just some of the observable consequences of climate change here in Western Washington. You might recall the heat dome that settled in during the summer of 2021, taking scores of lives. That event prompted two teams from the University of Washington to take a hard look at what's coming and how we can all prepare. As Northwest Now Steve Kiggins tells us from the sourdough fire near New Halem in the North Cascades, one of the biggest impacts of climate change here in Western Washington is the ongoing stress high temperatures put on human beings and infrastructure like Seattle City Lights dam and transmission facilities.
They negotiate challenging terrain and gusts and winds that push this fire up and down these canyons, growing to hundreds of acres in size. That's why there's nearly 350 firefighters fighting the sourdough fire, all while temperatures outside continue rising. This is as far as one can get into the North Cascades. Since the end of July, WashDOT closed the northern route to all traffic so firefighters can work without distraction.
Fire seasons didn't used to be this long. When I was in California 40 years ago, we had a summer season.
Public Information Officer Pete Irving earned his stripes digging fire lines, hiking the backcountry. He's been fighting wildland fires for decades. He says firefighters' number one defense to danger is their physical fitness. Marching with heavy, tool-laden packs, plus staying hydrated and looking out for each other keeps crews safe, he says. But stronger heat waves may present new challenges to old John.
Fire seasons are getting longer and more extreme, and it means the firefighters are under more stress, and we're concerned both about physical and mental health. Lots of smart folks are taking lots of good actions to keep all the firefighters safe and fit.
This graph reminds us that we cannot focus only on the weeks or months ahead, but on preparation for decades to come, which may continue to resemble this same trend.
Gonzaga's Center for Climate, Society, and the Environment shared its findings this summer after the strong 2021 heat dome slammed the Pacific Northwest.
Average daytime highs are getting warmer than we should reasonably expect.
Additionally, the University of Washington's June report, titled In the Hot Seat, shared striking heat-related death data, pointing to this spike over the 2021 heat dome, where 18 heat-related deaths were a daily average. In the Hot Seat suggests installing green roofs and shade structures to reduce the impacts of urban heat islands. Plus, shuttling vulnerable populations to cooler areas can offer relief to the heat. The report also pointed to already proven strategies, like scheduling rehydration breaks, shifting outdoor worker hours, and increasing shade with temporary structures leads to immediate positive impacts on public health. Plus, a bigger impact for wildland firefighters, humanity's growth into more wild areas makes their work even more challenging.
North, south, east, west, and I've been back to the same place several times. And usually when I go back, there's more houses and there's more human-made infrastructure in the wildland that makes our job as wildland firefighters more difficult.
In the North Cascades, Steve Kiggins, Northwest Now.
An in-depth conversation about the UW's efforts to study climate impacts continues on the Steve on the Street podcast, streaming now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.